Hello. In this clip from our Justia webinar, Advising on AI, Guiding Your Clients Through AI Challenges, James Gatto discusses the current policies and legislation regarding working with AI in the legal field. If you want to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Okay, so let's kind of zoom out a little bit to current policy, right? So last October, the White House issued an executive order. It basically has 7 pillars. You can see here that these are the areas that the White House wants the agencies to focus on in connection with AI. As part of this, many agencies now, well over a dozen, if not more, have appointed chief AI officers. The effect of the White House executive order is going to be far-reaching. It's really going to impact many of the agencies. They're already issuing guidance, taking steps to do enforcement where they need to. And some of this is focused on, companies and the kind of the business side of this. And part of this is designed to promote the use of AI by the government and the government agencies in connection with operating their agencies. And there's a whole set of issues around how they're going to do that in a responsible way. So I'm just going to kind of leave this as a high level. If you really want to get into the policy side, there's a lot of information here you can kind of dig into. One of the things I find very useful is Stanford's Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence group basically extracted out all of the mandates from the White House executive order, and there's 150 of them. And you can see here the distribution based on the policy issues and then which federal entities are mandated to take different actions. So there's a live link there. You can kind of see updated information. There's been requirements at the 90, 120, 180 day marks, or 270 day mark, for agencies to take certain actions. Every deadline to date has been met, which is pretty rare for these types of situations. The 1 year mark is the end of October, so we'll get the final actions that are due under the initial White House executive order should come out by the end of October. So there's a lot of things pending as a result of this. Okay. When we talk about responsible AI, one of the ways to assist in managing whether what you're doing is responsible AI is to really consult the NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, their AI risk management framework. They issued guidance back in 2023 as a result of the White House executive order. They have actually updated that with 4 new documents. NIST is a voluntary framework, so it's not a law. You don't have to comply with it, but it's deemed by many people to be at this point like the best practices. Colorado law that I mentioned earlier references that certain things that developers and deployers must do, that they must meet the minimums for nationally recognized standards. They didn't mention this by name, but that's an example of how it actually, this may have the force of law if the statute deems it to be kind of a standard that's required by the law. These are some of the updates that they provided. I'm going to skip through those so I can get to some of the other issues here. They also created the U.S. Safety Institute, AI Safety Institute, some information there about that. They're just really starting to get going, but they're holding hearings, getting input, and developing additional guidance on how to use AI responsibly and safely. On the proposed legislation side, many of the issues we talked about, copyright, privacy, deepfakes, transparency, all of these things are pending laws. Who knows which if any of these will pass at the federal level. There's been state laws. I mentioned Colorado is probably the most significant one that's passed. It has passed and been enacted. It comes into force February 2026. There's some additional information here about what that covers. California, I think it was just this week, Gavin Newsom signed 5 bills into law that are California AI bills that cover the topics that are pending here. These are the 5, I'm sorry, that were signed this week. Okay, so on managing legal risks, these are some of the key takeaways. In my opinion, every company needs to have an AI policy. You need to have role-based AI governance. As I mentioned earlier, depending on how the company is using or what role they're playing with AI, the policy will need to dictate different things. If you are training AI versus just using it, policies are going to cover different things. Okay. How do you do this? First and foremost, it's important to form an AI governance committee. You need to have representative individuals from different parts of the company. Depending on the nature of the company, it's going to be people from legal, it might be marketing, it might be finance, executives. You need to decide what is all the input you need, the right input in decision makers to develop a policy that's going to work company-wide. CTOs for open source code generators and other technology and vendor diligence, et cetera. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they need education. And this is not intended to be offensive. They need legal education. A lot of these people, even some of the lawyers, don't know the issues, but the people who are non-lawyers most likely don't know the issues. You can't formulate a good legal policy if you don't understand the legal issues and the business ramifications. A big part of what I'm doing is going in and training companies, helping form these committees, training companies. And then once they're trained, they understand the issues, then they can actually get down to building policies and deciding what risks are acceptable, what uses are acceptable for the company, and all the other factors that go into these policies that we'll touch on. So that's a big part of what I think every company needs to address, because if you have employees that are using AI and you don't know what tools they're using, you're probably going to have liabilities that you won't know about until down the road. And so you really need to kind of do this now, because everyone's using these technologies, right? Whether it's ChatGPT or more sophisticated tools. You need to adopt policies for enhanced vendor diligence for AI-specific products. And you also need to think about your third parties. If you have third-party contracts where people are developing content for you, whether it's code or images or for marketing materials or whatever it might be, you need to develop a policy for managing them and deciding what they can and can't do with respect to using AI in connection with services they're providing to you and deliverables they're creating for you. There's some more detail in this link as far as, kind of the type of training and what some of the policies need to include. But just to cover some of them, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times I get a question from my partners, hey, can you send me over an AI policy for this company? Like, the answer is no. I don't know what they're doing, right? So you have to customize them. It really is not a one-size-fits-all, and they vary significantly. Okay, so we talked about the steps, the governance, the training, the policies. It's really important if you're training AI that you really kind of dig in on the NIST policies and other best practices. What we typically do, the way I typically approach it, is we develop these checklists to do AI policies. And while we've got a kind of a core checklist, depending on the nature of the company, some of the topics may vary, but we started out with, not surprisingly, well, but what's the company's role with AI? What are they doing? What are the types of activities that they're engaged with? Then we talk about the types of content they're generating and how it's being used. We talk about the types of tools that they use or want to use and for what purposes. Then we just, we'll figure out, are there developers using AI code generators? Where is this company operating geographically? Because there's state laws, federal laws, and international laws that may apply. And so, this is not a complete checklist, but these are some of the things just to kind of get an overview of what the company is doing. And then to assess, like, okay, so what are some of the legal risks? And then once you identify the risks, you can develop policies to mitigate those risks. As I mentioned before, if you're training AI, data is really important. We typically do a data mapping. We try to understand what is all the data that we use to train the AI? Where did the data come from? What were the terms under which the data was collected or otherwise acquired? And is there any risk with how the company wants to do it? Ideally, the company will do this before they'll go through this and develop this policy before they spend a lot of money training. So you don't have to say, hey, you can't really undo training. Once the training is done, in many cases, at least some cases, you can't undo it. You have to go back and just retrain the models from scratch. So this is kind of some of the steps that their companies are training AI. And the earlier you do it in the process, the better it is. On the vendor diligence, so I've talked about this a couple of times at a high level. It's important first to understand there's two things that are going on. One is there's companies that are building and selling AI tools where the tool itself performs some AI or some set of AI functions. But there's also many tools that you're already using where the vendor is adding AI features to your tool. So like Microsoft Word, for example, they're adding Copilot. So all of the issues I talked about can apply whether it's as kind of a standalone AI tool or AI integrated into an existing tool. So this is an example of where you need to manage and understand that if the vendor is adding an AI feature or wants to add an AI feature to your tool, that you do the diligence before you agree to it. You have to understand what are the legal terms, what are the ramifications, how is the tool working, what are the risks, all the things that we talked about earlier. Okay, and I'm sorry, one other thing is you need to do diligence on what their development policies are, right? So from the standpoint I mentioned earlier about, it's important that you can be liable for what a tool does as a deployer. Because of that, you want to understand from the beginning, where did the vendor get the data from? Did they have a right to use it? How did they train? What are the steps to ensure that they do responsible AI development, et cetera? You want to go through that entire process to get comfortable that the tool or the feature that's adding AI is something that doesn't present unnecessarily legal risk for you. These are just more of the kind of the topics. We touched on a lot of these earlier. I think it's helpful to ask a vendor if they have a written AI development policy. If they don't have one, that's probably a red flag. You want to figure out, does the vendor, kind of they follow the NIST practices or not, et cetera. So you can see here's kind of a list of some of the topics. Again, it may vary depending on the nature of the tool. It's also important when you're doing diligence in connection with deals, whether it's M&A or finance, kind of go through some of the issues. A lot of the standard diligence questions that people ask in any deal are, of course, are going to be relevant, but there's some AI specific issues in light of some of the topics that we talked about. And there's a link to an article there at the bottom that goes into some of the additional topics and, why there's unique legal issues with generative AI, many of which I covered today, and how do you deal with that from a diligence perspective and reps and warranties in the deal docs. There's, I'm a member of a group called iTech Law. We developed a couple of diligence questionnaires or checklists. One is AI specific, and then there's another one that's kind of more general for M&A. So if you're a member of iTech, if not, I think you can get a copy of it, and those are all public.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more law practice and legal marketing videos. See you in our next clip.